Hi, this is Scott Devine from scottsbasslessons.com. Check out my website for other soloing tutorials and stuff like that. You might be quite into it. This is part one of a tutorial about improvising on static minor chords. By static I mean modally type things like impressions and so what. Obviously a lot of my students have been asking me recently what they should be thinking over a static minor chord and how they can make it more interesting and get out of the patterns that they're playing over and over again to make it, where it's making it a bit sort of monotonous. So yeah, here we go. Static minor chords. When you see a static minor chord in something like So what you want to be thinking first off, you want to make sure that you've got your arpeggios down, so you can clearly state the sound of the chord within your improvisation. So when you're practicing arpeggios, you don't just want to, obviously, that's your D minor arpeggio. By the way, we'll do it in D minor just because So What and impressions are in D minor. Yeah, so your D minor arpeggio is D, F, A, C and D. That was from my first finger starting on the A string. But obviously you can do it from your little finger starting on the A string. D, F on the D string, A on the G string, C on the G string, and then you can either slide up, or if you've got a C string like me, you can play the D there. So you've got or D on the E string, or you can play from the D on the E string set on your first finger. So what I'm saying is, you can't just learn, you can obviously learn the arpeggio, but you've got to learn the arpeggio over the entire instrument. When I'm in this first position here, I can play the C here, so it's D, F, A, C, but there's a C here as well. There's an A here, there's an F here. So within this position, my arpeggio just isn't. It's actually so you've got to make sure that you learn the full arpeggio, all the arpeggio notes within each position. Yeah? Once you've learnt that, or learnt them positions, you want to check out the Dorian scale as well, especially over tunes like with So What and impressions, because they're the melodies. Are Dorian based. The Dorian scale, D Dorian scale, is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, which is basically a major scale, C major scale, but starting on the second degree. So D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So if you think about it, you could either play C major over a D minor chord, or D Dorian, because they're the same scale. The thought process does change when I'm playing D Dorian, which is that scale. And when I'm playing D Dorian, I do approach different notes in different ways than when I'm playing C major, even though they are the same scale. They're the same notes, just starting on different degrees of the scale. So it's worth experimenting with that. You know, you can play a C major scale over a D minor Dorian chord, but just be aware that the thought process when you're playing over it, you know, could be different. You don't want to be just, you know, playing a C major 7 arpeggio constantly, that kind of, you know, over a D minor sound, because it'll just sound like you're playing C major. So you've got to be aware that your thought processes will be different. So once you've learned the arpeggios in all positions and the D Dorian scale in all positions as well, you know, you've got to know your D Dorian here, 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 oh, here. You know, you've got to know your D Dorian all over as well. You can't just learn it in one position. Once you've done that, obviously you don't have to, you know, you don't have to do all of this before you you experiment with playing over a D minor. It's just got to be at the same time. You know, you've got to get things down in different positions. Otherwise, you're going to be confined to certain areas of your neck. And once you've got that down, get a D minor groove together. You know, on a little sequencer or something like that. There's loads of downloadable stuff on the internet for bits and bobs like that. Or Band in the Box is good as well. Once you've got that down, experiment with mixing the two. So possibly think, let's take something. I'll just get my my little backing track up here. I'm going to take something. I'm going to take a D minor static groove. I'm going to play up the D minor arpeggio, and then I'm going to play down the D Dorian scale. So I'm going to ascend up the arpeggio, down the scale, just for, you know, just for a practice thing. Let's start this here. So up the arpeggio, down the scale. In different positions as well. So once you've done that, you want to start playing around with the rhythm of it. And I'm just talking, obviously you're not going to do this in your improvisations on a gig, but in a practice situation, you know, really hone in on things and tie things down, really limit what you're practicing, so then you'll learn it to the best of your ability. Now I'm going to take the same idea, I'm going to ascend through the arpeggio and then descend through the D Dorian scale, but I'm going to sort of mix up the rhythm a little bit. Let's see if I can do that. So ascending through the arpeggio, descending down the scale. There was a 9, still going down the scale. Up the scale. Down the scale. Up the arpeggio. Down the scale. Up the arpeggio, down the scale. You get my point. What I'm saying is, you know, you've really got to practice stuff like that. Anyway, I'll just sign off now. This was part 1 of the D minor improvisation on a static D minor. Check out part 2 and we'll talk about substitutions and all that kind of thing. Cheers, bye.